HBO saved my creative, my creative and commercial. The marriage of the two saved me because my record career had pretty much died down. I had 4 gold records in the early 70s, and you can't be the new hot guy in town forever. So I began to fade and then run out of ideas. I drifted a while. HBO came along. In 77, I did my first show for them. They didn't have many subscribers. 78, I did another one, and I was on my way. I've now done 13 of them, and number 14 is coming. And that is what has kept me in front of a mass audience without censorship. I don't mean just fuck, shit, and piss. I mean ideas that would be unwelcome on commercial enterprise television. Because commercials, it's in the word. It's a commercial enterprise. They can't allow you to be upsetting the customers. No. Can you soften that a little? I don't do that. I mean, I do the Tonight Show occasionally. I do Letterman occasionally, just to plug a new thing that came out that I want to plug. And I work on some things for them that are good from the panel, you know. But HBO without commercials, boy, that saved my ass. And it really made me who I am. It allowed me to continue working 200 days a year or 100, however many I was well enough to do. And that forced me to write. Every time an HBO came around, I'd throw the show out and I'd write another one. I became a writer because of HBO. It's a weird life, you know. I read something when I was still a comedian in the Greenwich Village. A friend of mine, Bob Altman, not Robert Altman, Bob Altman, he told me about Arthur Koestler's Act of Creation. And in the Act of Creation, Arthur Koestler, I don't remember the details of this well enough to do it justice, so I'm going to have to shorthand it to the part that meant something to me. He showed a triptych, a 3-paneled illustration. And and there were several listings down, several listings in the vertical column, each of them. And then, of course, you could go look across from one triptych to the second to the third. And that was the progression of a creative person. And the jester was in the first triptych. And the jester is, of course, a person who makes jokes. He makes these funny jokes. But if he has ideas attached, if the jokes are built on sound ideas, if there's something philosophical in his thinking that the jokes illuminate, then he's a bit of a philosopher too. So he goes to the second part of the triptych. Jester becomes jester philosopher now. And if he does those things with marvelous language that thrills us, particularly graceful combinations of words and runs and rhythms of language, then he becomes a poet as well. And so the jester has become a philosopher poet, and he's all one. And I read that at a very young period before my development really kicked into gear. And yet somehow it stayed with me. And I think I can now do a little justice to that theory. I think I can claim to have my essay, they're essays now. There are sound ideas in them. The jokes are great. I would never run from jokes. Joke. I love big jokes. I love fat jokes. I love home run jokes. And I just put in 5 or 6 more the other day in this piece that's almost finished. And I love the jokes. But the jokes are there to decorate the ideas. The ideas are about what I don't like in this country, what it is I'm sort of kind of disenchanted by in my fellow man, my fellow human, and my fellow American. So those are the ideas. But then I found that I have this ability my father had to be really good with language and to put it into kind of interesting sounding bits and snatches and runs and trills and things. And so I've kind of gotten that. I mean, I kind of have inherited that. And now I feel fully realized as a performing writer. See, I used to think of myself as a writer, as a performer who wrote his own material. I always bragged about that in interviews. I'd say, I write my own material, because a lot of comedians didn't. I'd say, I'm a comedian, but I write my own material. Now I think I'm a writer who performs his own material. I write, but I have 2 places for it, books and on stage.
Hearing you talk about, the jester, philosopher, poet, I thought of the opening monologue of one of those specials, Modern Man.
Yeah.
And it's a rap. I mean, it's a rap poem.
Yeah, and it's all about language, and it's all about jargon, really. American jargon in this decade, let's call it.
Yeah.
And I'm a modern man, a man for the millennium, digital and spoke free, a diversified, multicultural, postmodern deconstructionist, politically, anatomically, and ecologically incorrect. I'll do a short part of it for you. I've been uplinked and downloaded. I've been inputted and outsourced. I know the upside of downsizing. I know the downside of upgrading. I'm a high-tech lowlife, a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, bi-coastal multitasker, and I can give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond. I'm new wave, but I'm old school. And my inner child is outward bound. I'm a hot-wired, heat-seeking, warm-hearted, cool customer, voice-activated and biodegradable. I interface with my database. My database is in cyberspace, so I'm interactive, I'm hyperactive, and from time to time, I'm radioactive. That's enough for now.